So, hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Lucy and Tim Show. As you could probably see, I'm not in my office today. I am recording this on location. For those of you that travel the country will probably recognize the decor. Classic travel lodge. Not the nicest travel lodge in the world, but there you go. I guess it's better than sleeping in my car. So, Lucy, how's things with you?
Good. Yeah, it's good. Busy. Good. Yeah. We've not seen one another for a while. Well, actually, we have, but we haven't.
Oh, we had a disaster with the last one,
We
didn't
did.
we? We did. We did. We had a terrible disaster. We recorded this lovely episode with a special guest, and then Lucy ruined it with her computer. Tis
Okay.
your computer.
So instead of pointing that naughty finger of pointy blame, which actually I think is really key for us to bring the naughty finger of pointy blame into the room, this finger that if we point one, the point was it wasn't me. It just so happened that my computer decided that it's got CPU issues and it decided it was going to gobble it up, spit it out and not save the recording. And yeah,
Poor computer.
I know, it's poorly.
I know, but a lovely episode disappeared into cyber drains.
I know.
So, in this episode, we're going to talk about, and this is a bit of a mouthful, so I'm going to have to rethink about this, managing poorly performing managers. And that's really hard to say, isn't it? Which sounds a bit harsh, isn't it? Because it assumes that we're going to blame managers for all of the ills of the social care world, and we're really not, are we?
Well, we're not, but being the ever controversial soul that I am.
Really?
Yeah. I would potentially suggest that this is a behaviour that happens a lot in social care, potentially.
A behaviour that happens from, well, it happens in legislation, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah.
Because legislation places managers of services as responsible, don't they, if they have a registered manager position?
Mm-hmm.
And when a care service doesn't prosper, when it doesn't perform well, it's obviously the instinctive approach is to attack the manager.
Mm-hmm.
So it isn't easy being a manager of a care service. And I think we've both done that, haven't we?
Yeah.
It's not easy. But I think we have to accept that there are some people that do not perform as well as they should do.
I would agree with that.
Uh,
And I think that's interesting. Going back to what you were saying about the law and the responsibility, I think that there comes a not only professional responsibility, but a personal responsibility to ensure that as an individual, not only do you have the professional skills and knowledge, you actually have the personal attributes, not only skills, but also things like emotional intelligence, the ability to be able to tune into yourself, to know where your personal boundaries are and all that kind of lovely stuff, that kind of really holistic stuff.
all of that fluffy stuff. That's what people perceive it as, though, don't they? Fluffy stuff.
You're taking the mickey out of me now.
I'm not. I quite agree. I like emotional intelligence.
It's that fluffy stuff that fundamentally enables individuals to do their role to the best of their ability.
I know that. I'm not taking the mickey out of you.
Good.
In fact, I made a list.
You wouldn't dare, would you?
Well, I would be because I'm in London and you're in Worcestershire, so I could do whatever I like at the moment, can't I? But
Good. Good.
and by the time we actually meet in person again in October when we do this live, you'll have forgotten.
Well, do you know what doesn't matter about then? I'll have forgotten by the time we've uploaded.
I know
because of my brain fog and my menopause. I wouldn't have a clue, Tim.
I've remembered you have brain fog and menopause, so I can say it you like and you forget.
You
In fact, you could say,
can't you?
You could say that Lucy's brain has got CPU issues.
My brain has definitely got CPU issues. It absolutely has.
You could see.
It needs a new motherboard.
So you could argue your computer takes after you.
Well, maybe my computer, maybe I'm modeling such behavior to my computer.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, right, there we are. We
Right. So
digress in our usual manner.
so I wrote a fluffy list and I called it qualities.
Oh,
This is what I wrote. Listen to my list. We've got to make sure that people have the capability to do their job. We've got to make sure they've got. I wrote down desire, but then I changed it to motivation. But now I quite like desire, and I think they're different things.
oh, they are. Yeah, I'd say they are. Yeah.
And I'm going to be poetic now, which is unusual. Desire is like the fire inside them to do this, but the fire pretty quickly goes out.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down they need the energy,
Mm-hmm.
and I've seen it many times with people who were like in the service I was in today, right? Lovely manager, but totally and utterly knackered, burned out.
Mm-hmm.
Not because she's not supported, she is. Not because the job is difficult, it isn't. Not because the people they support are challenging, they're not that challenging. It's like trying to push a staff team up a hill and they don't want to go up the hill.
I think there's a lot of managers that feel that way at the moment. Funnily enough, I was chatting last night, as I often do with people on Messenger and wherever they just randomly message me. And I think that's probably
That sounds terrible.
Managers.
That
Stop.
sounds terrible, Lucy.
No,
You know
no,
that.
it sounds terrible based on your model of the world. So if you have that stuff in your head, Tim, that sounds like a you problem. Anyway, managers, staff, and this is the, stop it. Clear the screen. Right. This is something a lot of managers are finding at the moment, and it's hard work. It feels like they are just going on and on and on, and it doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what process they implement. It doesn't matter what they say, what angle they come at. And me being me, I was able to go back and kind of explain the reasons for why folk are seeing this a lot. So yes, it's completely understandable that the manager you saw today is exhausted. Now, what I would say is, what is that manager doing themselves to acknowledge how they feel themselves?
I was given a lift back in my hotel by that manager's manager, and we did talk about that.
Mm.
And they are aware they have had a dialogue.
So
But
that's
also,
key, isn't it? That's about the responsibility bit that I was talking about.
I think it's become part of that manager's identity
Oh, absolutely. I'd agree. I think it's an
to
identity that sits in social care.
be I am exhausted.
But I think it fits in a bit of so in social care, there's a lot of folk that are waiting for this mystical unicorn to come along and rescue them.
Her mystical unicorn is going to be called retirement.
Interesting. And those feelings and thoughts that they are experiencing that are impacting their ability at the moment, retirement come along, but actually they'll still be feeling the thoughts, and it just be in a different way.
Yeah.
So there's that element of the mystical unicorn waiting to come along and rescue them. And then if you say that there's a lot of people that are listening to this narrative of it's really tough, it is really tough.
Oh, are you saying it's contagious?
I think there's a degree, but I think there's also a degree of a certain amount of proportion of people are not prepared to take responsibility for the situation that they are in as individuals. And it's easy to sit there and point that finger of blame, isn't it? Rather than actually saying, I'm an adult, I'm responsible for me.
And that brings me to number 4 on my list, which is a fluffy thing, self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
That was number 4 on my list.
So you see, for me, I might be super, super, super aware, which probably does my doctor's head in, because I ring her up and go, my estrogen level's too low. And she'll go, well, it can't be. And I'll go, it can, because this is what I'm feeling. Now, it might take somebody else who's less in tune with their body. It might take them a lot more longer time to actually be able to notice that's how they're feeling, have the confidence to be able to say that's how I'm feeling and know that their feelings are real, and actually be able to have that conversation to say, I need you to do something about this because I don't need to live like this. I think there's a lot of managers that think that they need to continue to carry this horrendous burden of being a manager. They need to be needed.
So are you okay at saying to other people when you're not okay?
I am absolutely okay to say to people when I am not okay. So we were meant to record an episode last week, weren't we?
We were.
Yeah. And at about 6:45 in the evening, and we were meeting at 7 o'clock. What did I
We
do?
were. You said, I'm not feeling good today. I'm not feeling well. Can we rearrange?
I'm off to go and sit on the sofa under my blanket, put an episode or something on the TV, because that's where I was at.
Mm.
But there would have been a time, let's rewind, where I wouldn't have done that. And I'd have jumped on that call.
And is your brain good enough to remember what I responded? Or was that a week ago? You can't
No, you
remember.
told me you got man flu, so you were fine about it.
But the difference is you wussed out because you weren't feeling well. And I'd have carried on and done it because I have man flu.
See, that's really interesting, isn't it? Think of what you've just said. I wussed out. So there in itself is why people don't turn around and say,
I, I,
you
I
did that on
chose my words.
purpose. You
I
took it
chose
on
my
purpose.
words deliberately.
You knew I listened to your words.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't wuss out. This girl is not a wuss, I tell you.
I know you didn't, but that just shows the difference between you and me, but a difference between sometimes the male and female behavior as well.
Yeah, I think there's an element where there's a large proportion of male society that just have to keep on digging through, but that's a whole other episode.
But you'll be proud of me.
Would I be
So I
proud?
had man flu last week, otherwise known as a cold. Okay, so I just ignored it completely, as you do. But I did drive about 900 miles in 3 days. But on Thursday, I was only 50 miles away from home, and I taught all day to managers about something. I can't remember what it was about. And afterwards, I was supposed to do a mentoring session with one of them. And when we'd arranged that we'd do it after the training. But, after teaching all day, I was knackered. So I just said, do you mind if we just don't do it this evening and we do it next week? So I took a leaf out of Lucy's book and said, do you know what? I'm just not feeling it. So, it would have took me half an hour, right? It was actually easier to do it than rearrange it. It really was. But there was a little bit in the back of my head thinking, Lucy would have told me to say, no, you're not feeling right about it. So look, I did listen.
I have the habit of being in people's ear roll. It's not intentional, but it just happens. So let's take that as a thing. We've got managers that feel like they're pushing uphill, they're exhausted, and they keep going in and doing the same thing. And they're sitting there going, but what about me? Rather than saying, this isn't working, this is a problem I'm experiencing, we need to do something about it. And the most important place for me to start is with me.
Which brings me on to number 5 on my list, which is knowledge. Because with knowledge comes power. And I find that many people who manage lack the right knowledge. Now, they once had the knowledge, but the things they need to know have moved on. And some of their knowledge is a bit out of date. But that also includes their knowledge about themselves, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's the knowledge around their perspective on a situation. So yes, you've got regulation that will change. Yes, you've got nice guidance that will change. Yes, you've got what the local authority and the ICB and whoever else want you to do. You've got that kind of knowledge. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But then you've also got the knowledge and the awareness of where you're at as an individual. And how your insight and knowledge of how you're doing what you're doing, and how effective you're being at that. Because quite often, when we've got a problem, we have a tendency of putting our head in the problem.
To go ahead in the problem.
Yeah. So
So we put our heads in the sand when we have a problem.
it's a similar kind of concept, isn't it? So you can put your head in the sand.
Only if you've got a problem with sand.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to put my head in the sand. Oh, no. Right, okay. So think about it.
Making my brain hurt now.
Where our focus goes, energy flows.
Okay.
It's so hard. I keep pushing these staff. It doesn't matter what I do. I keep doing the same thing every day, expecting a different result, expecting a different outcome with the knowledge I've got today. And I don't get a different result. So do you know what? I'll do it all again tomorrow, but I won't actually do
Yeah.
anything about changing my perspective or my knowledge. So I'll keep putting my head in the problem.
Very true. Which brings me on to the next thing, which I think you're gonna like. I think one of the capabilities, one of the qualities, self-management skills.
Massive, huge, huge.
Yeah. Linked to, and this goes on to what you just said, role modeling. Because if the manager is woe is me, that's a role model.
Yeah, of course it will. And then all the staff will do woe is me.
Yeah.
The modelling behaviour.
NLP again. It works on this fluffy stuff, doesn't it? I don't really think it's fluffy stuff, actually.
Well, it's
That's the perception.
yeah.
That's the perception, isn't it?
Well, it's
Yeah.
interesting, isn't it? And if you think about the perception, so around that, and I know this is talking about what I do these days, but fundamentally, I can help people if they want to change the way they do what they do very quickly and get great results. Whereas it's super easy these days for somebody to go to the doctors and say that they're struggling. And this isn't me dismissing or invalidating anybody that's struggling. It really isn't. But it is really easy for a GP to just write out a prescription for antidepressants. And then for that to be, it's encouraged in society, you know, it makes money.
So are we saying that GP should write out a prescription for Lucy's?
100%.
No, and I think we have to say to our listener that other Lucy's are available.
There are
And
lots of,
sometimes they have different names.
yeah, they do.
They
So
do.
if I think about it, so you're talking about managing poorly performing managers. So
Yes.
sometimes you can go on a journey on a train and the person has to sit down on that train on the journey. They have to want to be on the train.
I have to do that tomorrow.
Good for you. Anyway, this is an analogy, not an actual train.
Okay.
It may be that people don't actually want to sit down on that train and go on that journey. And you can do everything you can. You can show them a different carriage. You can give them a different seat. You can give them, I don't know, what that service where they come around with tea and coffee. I don't know what that's called. It's probably got a posh name. You can do anything within your power.
It's called a trolley.
Yeah, but isn't there like concierge? Is it something like that?
No, it's called a trolley. They
Trolley.
call it a trolley on the train.
But fundamentally, if they don't want to sit down on the train and go on the journey, it doesn't matter what you do, you're not
Yeah.
going to get them to sit down on the train, which is where you need to then say, well, there's a station down the road and the door will open. You can choose to get off the train if you like to.
Yeah.
But it's about giving people every single opportunity that's available so that they do sit down on the train, because it may just be that the chair they're sitting on the train is uncomfortable for them.
I think the people, when I introduce this, would think that we're going to talk about how to get rid of poorly performing managers, but we're not, are we? Because we're talking about how we can nurture people, how we can support people, how we can give them the resources. But to use your train analogy, we can give them all of those things that we like, but if they're not receptive to them, if they're not open to recognize that the problem actually lies with themselves, it's just a waste of time.
It is. And unfortunately, there will be a lot of proportion of society that will be getting some gain from the less positive patterns of behavior that they run. So this is why, say, for example, it's super key, and I think this is something to think about, business to think about. If you're recruiting for a registered manager and you just interview once and you appoint one on that first interview, where does that show that that person is really committed to doing that job? So for example, if somebody gets in touch with me and says, Lucy, I want to work with you, I'll go, brilliant, great. This is the Calendly link to my diary. Pop yourself in my diary and we'll jump on a call. That's not me being nice. That's me seeing if they actually want to jump on a call or they're just sending me a message because actually they just want somebody to listen to them. Now,
And then they don't, and then they don't turn up.
and then you will find that they don't turn up. So that to me is they're not a client.
They're an ex-client before they've become a client.
Yeah, they were never going to be a client because they're not ready yet.
So I'm going to challenge your only interview them once. You say you
I
shouldn't
didn't
do that.
say, yeah, I think you shouldn't only interview somebody
Now,
once.
if you listen to the narrative from recruiters, it's exactly the opposite. So the narrative from recruiters is the more you make people work, the less they are likely to work for you because they've got loads of job offers from the ones that give them the job easy.
Okay, so is that about supply and demand?
And that's just about recruiters trying to feather their own nest.
Exactly.
There's me
So,
just upsetting every recruiter that I know.
yeah. So is it about the fact that you want to run a business that's safe, effective, caring, well led, and responsive, and have that done with the correct person leading your team who can model great values, behaviors, whatever? Or is it that you want to part with that 6-7 grand? I don't know what it costs these days to replace a manager. I don't have to worry about those things anymore. Is it that you just want to
Okay,
get somebody in the seat quickly?
it is about that because I saw a post on social media the other day which suggested 18% of salary
Frightening,
as a recruiter cost.
frightening.
So it is about what the figure you've said. I mean, I think that's a bit high end actually, but you know.
But if you look at managers' salaries and some of them, I mean, we're talking 75,000 for some managers, 80,000 for some big homes.
Indeed. They better be good for that.
So I would suggest that it's not about the needs of the recruiter and giving into pressure of economics, for example. It's about the outcome that you want for the business, and for the people that you care for. So the really key part of managing poorly performing managers is don't put a poorly performing manager into your service to manage it.
So let me ask you two questions. Okay. But I'll ask them one at a time because your brain won't cope with two. Okay. What do you think about a service that's had lots of registered managers in a short space of time?
I think what comes to mind is an onion.
I never expected you to say that. Go on. You're
Well,
gonna have to explain now.
there'll be lots of layers, won't there? So a service that has lots of managers, there will be lots of layers and lots of reasons for why managers can't say. It could be recruitment process. They're just putting somebody in quickly because that's what they want.
Could be.
Could be a really difficult staff team.
Could be culture.
Could be a horrendous culture in the home, but it could also be that the business that they're working for and in are just not a good place to be.
Okay. That's the more difficult question, and you probably have to think a bit before you answer this.
I can't do that.
Okay. What do you think about someone that's had lots of jobs as a manager in a short space of time? Is that onions as well? So you did think then, didn't you?
Did you see how I thought? Because I went,
Yeah, you did.
right, okay. So I'm actually thinking again. Can you see my eyes? I'm going,
Yeah.
right, okay. So what I would say to that is, it's not in my values to judge. I would want more detail. So somebody might suggest that they are what they call, and it's a really horrible word, I
Oh,
think,
I know what you're gonna say.
a hopper.
Oh, pa.
Now, if somebody were to look at my CV from years ago, they'd go, you moved a lot. Yeah, I did. Absolutely. I did for a period of time because I got made redundant from my NHS job. Before that, I was redeployed 3 times in my NHS role. So I had to go through 3 different roles and that was due to funding. They just stopped the roles, cancelled me, and redeployed me. Then I got made redundant. I then moved to another job and got made redundant. I then moved to another job and got made redundant.
So you had a hat trick of redundancies.
I did. So I think it's about asking for more detail. But what I would also do, and this is where it's important to understand more, what's the root cause of that movement? So was it something outside of that person's control? In my situation, it was outside of my control. Or is it in that person's control where actually a bit like maybe like chucking a frog into a pan of boiling water, the frog just jumps straight back out again. But it could also be that the business are just recruiting the wrong people and it's a business problem.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts? Because you've got a thinking face.
I've got a thinking face on. In terms of the service that has lots of managers, I predominantly put that down to misaligned values, poor recruitment. They recruited the wrong people, and if they keep on recruiting the wrong people, that's never going to change. In terms of the people that have lots of jobs, I agree with you. It does depend on the circumstances. People, I think people are often missold roles.
Yeah.
They are sold this wonderful role, and there's a small, tiny bit of the job description that attracts them.
Yeah.
That's what they go for. But they don't realize that was a tiny bit of the job description,
Mhm.
and most of it's quite shitty, actually.
Mhm. So going back to what you said about misalignment of values, it could be that the company's got less good values
It
and
could
they're
be
putting people in who've got good values. And those people are going, I ain't stopping here.
very true. Um, but mostly, I think it's people are sold a dream and
Yeah,
they walk into a nightmare.
yeah. Because uh, a recruiter's role is there to recruit. They're not going to often try and sell you
Oh,
going to a car garage, right? You're going to say, I want a car. They're not going to try and sell you old Del Boys 3-wheeler, are they? Do you know what I mean? They're not going to stand there and go, oh, I've
they're
got,
not going to say, look, buy this car. It's a bit shit, but sometimes it goes.
yeah,
They're not going to say that, are they?
of course they're not.
It's a bit like saying, look, take this job. It's mostly shit, but occasionally it's all right.
Hmm,
But the reality is, it's often like that, isn't it?
it is. But I think there's also something fundamentally key that a lot of people miss. And it is the fact that a registered manager's job is not Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. You are registered manager 24/7, 365 days of a year.
And if it all goes pear-shaped at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning and somebody dies, you have questions to answer.
And the thing is, it's about accepting that reality.
But it's a bit different though, isn't it? Because CQC will have that conversation with them. But in Wales, where I live, there are no registered managers. because they're registered personally with Social Care Wales. Nobody interviews them. They just submit an application if they've got the right qualifications. If someone endorses them, job done. But they have personal accountability. But the worst thing that can happen to them is they can be A, fired, and B, barred from the register. Accountability in Wales lies with the responsible individual.
Mm.
Very different. But in England, we know CQC and Ofsted, in Ofsted services in England, the regulator has a conversation about legal responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And you see cases of managers being fined, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Not big amounts of money. It's thousands of pounds, but it's not big amounts. I think there was one that was fined 13,000 a couple of months ago, which is quite a lot in there.
Yes. It's an
Um,
uncomfortable place to stand, isn't it? Gripping the rail in court.
I don't know. I've never been there. Have you?
No, I've watched, but I haven't been that side of the rail because that was never going to be that.
I have
No.
delivered a presentation in a courtroom, though.
Have you?
Do you remember a TV program called Judge John Deed? Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember the wood paneled
That
court that they all what?
Martin, what's his name? The actor.
No, it was the man from The Professionals. Not Brody, the other one.
Yeah, I don't
Martin
know.
Sheen? No, it's not
Yeah,
Martin Sheen.
but rather dapper.
Anyway, that courtroom is part of like a county building,
Okay.
and they filmed it in that courtroom. And I delivered a presentation as part of trying to get a contract in that very courtroom,
Wow.
which was a bit weird, delivering a presentation to some tender people in a courtroom.
Yeah, yeah.
I did a role play with a stuffed mouse.
Okay.
I didn't get that contract.
Obviously, the mouse wasn't. Um,
The mouse was called Derek, and I, for some reason, did a supervision role play with a stuffed mouse called Derek, which didn't really work because Derek wasn't very forthcoming with his answers.
can't imagine that he would have been.
Do you know, I just thought how ridiculous that sounds.
It does, yeah, Tim.
It
But at the
does.
time, it was fine with the knowledge and experience that you had at the time. That's fine. Now look here, right? We've got to come up with some kind of dynamic ideas here, because fundamentally, we are not going to tell people how to manage poorly performing managers. I think both of us would say that there is a large responsibility on the provider to ensure that their recruitment processes are good, that they
Yes.
do everything within their control to recruit the right person. And if that's that they need to come to 2 or 3 interviews, the right person will want to do that and they will show
Yeah.
you they're the right person. But also it's about enabling a culture where that manager can be the best that they can be, and putting in whatever structure that is that enables them to do that. And as a company, when you start to see that that manager is not doing that, then that as a company, you need to be saying something. And also as a manager, I think you need to have far more self-empowerment to say, this isn't working for me right now, rather than keep trudging on because you think you should.
And I think as well, managers and employers need to accept that at some point they might have to say we need to call it quits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's that acceptance that not everybody's going to change. Some people go through life completely repeating the same patterns of behavior, and because actually asking them to change is too big an ask. But what I would say is that there are far more options out there today for providers that they can access. So, give them a consultant to work with that will give them the knowledge and show them, get
Well,
some independent support, get them somebody to work with on their brain and upgrade how they think. It isn't necessarily that just because this is the way you've always done it, that's the way you always need to do it.
well, I'm doing exactly that for a manager at the moment. And I was talking to someone about this manager, And they said, "Oh, you just need to get Lucy to help her." And I said, "I could, but Lucy isn't what this person needs at the moment.
That's interesting. So if
Not that not that you couldn't do good with her, but what she needs at the moment is not what you do.
Oh,
What she needs at the moment is what I do, which is very different.
yeah.
Because, but she might need what you do down the line."
So this is an interesting concept. Is it chicken or is it egg? And not knowing
Well,
who you're talking about, and obviously you wouldn't tell me.
no, you have no idea because I've never mentioned it to you before now.
Yeah. So no idea whatsoever. What I would say to you is, if the person is at a point where they can hear, follow your instructions, learn
Yeah,
from you,
yeah,
understand and retain the information you're giving them
they
based
are.
on quality and compliance issues, law,
Yeah,
regulation, that is a you thing. That is not
it
a me
isn't.
thing.
It's not.
If
Now, I spent a day working that out, but I'm not saying that at some point that person won't need what you bring to the table.
so, what I would say to you is, it could be that you start that journey and you
Yeah,
think, this isn't working. This person is not at the place where I can start giving them that. They're not ready to hear it yet. It might be that there's too much stuff going on inside their head that that's what they need to deal with first. It might be that it's something that can be done together, but then that might be quite
I think that
overwhelming
would
for the
probably be
person.
overkill.
Mm. So it's
I,
an
I,
interesting one.
I
Um,
think we'd fry their brain.
no, because I'm really gentle, you see, really gentle, and it's fine. Um, and I'm also fun to work with.
Well, I actually am as well, but people think I'm quite scary. I'm not.
How did
I'm
you
not.
notice I said that on purpose? It's got me own back then, didn't I? For the wuss comment.
I didn't remember that. I got brain fog.
So yeah, so it's an interesting one. It's about, is the person performing or is it that they're not able to perform?
Uh, Neither.
Ooh. Is it a
They
lack,
just
lack
no.
of,
They just need some technical knowledge.
so if it's technical knowledge, it's a Tim,
Um,
because I don't do technical knowledge.
in the time I've known them, it's a very short space of time. I'm confident that if I give them the technical knowledge, they can use the technical knowledge in the right way.
Mm.
But I don't know them well enough yet to have looked at the person. All I see is the manager.
Okay, so this is really interesting, isn't it? And this is where, okay,
We should
think
start a
about,
business.
think about, so this is something lovely Sophie Coulthard talks about. She talks about a wedding cake and tears on a wedding cake. So you've got to think about the self side and then the work side, as in the self side, who you are, and the work side, as in what you do. So you can teach somebody what they do. I help somebody with who they are, which then informs what they do. And if the one is not stable, the other one will wobble.
Do you know if I didn't have a business and you didn't have a business, we should start a business to do that?
What, make wedding cakes?
Fix managers.
But are they broken?
Uh that's a big question. Talking of wedding cakes, I've never had any of my wedding cakes.
Okay.
Because by the time I went to get some of my wedding cakes, all the other buggers had eaten it.
Was that because you were too busy propping the bar up?
No, I was determined never to be the bridegroom with a pint in his hand at any of my weddings.
Very good.
Sounds like I've had loads, doesn't have any had two.
Does. Mm,
Um, yeah, both times, all of the guests ate the wedding cake.
that's so funny.
What's the point of choosing a wedding cake? You know, everyone else just eats it.
It's really interesting because I mean, this is a whole other topic, but I did that wedding thing once, and I spent a lot of money back then, and I would absolutely not do that wedding thing again.
I've done it twice. The first time, booked on a Monday, got married on a Friday, got married in a registry office, went to Tesco, then told people we got married. Didn't spend hardly any money at all. Second time was slightly more expensive.
Mm. See, it's interesting, isn't it? That's not me saying that I don't agree with it. I'm saying that for me, getting married serves no purpose in my life.
Doesn't serve any purpose in my life now.
She does your washing, doesn't she?
I'm not going to do it again, am I? It was 20 years ago. I'm not doing it again, am I?
Good on you. You won't get that much for murder, would you, Tim? Now, come on. Right, so if we come up with a solution, they need technical education, knowledge,
And they need, and they need,
personal growth,
I want to say fluffy stuff.
fluffy stuff. It's
Yeah, there you go.
fluffy stuff. It's very, very powerful science.
There you go. So they need, I can't think of the right word to describe it. Emotional intelligence support
Yeah, they need a holistic approach.
and technical support.
Yeah, they do. They need
And what we
support for
shouldn't,
their self side and support for their work.
and we shouldn't be regarding managers of care services as disposable commodities.
Yeah, absolutely. We shouldn't.
No, we shouldn't be, because if we are, oh, that one's no good, I'm going to bin it and get another one. It's a throwaway society thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
And we've now got to the stage where we're throwing away people.
we are. But also, there's something else to think about. Now, both, whether it's a you or a me thing, whether it's a self side or a work side thing, I can guarantee you that the cost of both of us turning round one manager is a darn sight cheaper than replacing that one manager.
That sounds like an advert.
Sounds like business logic.
It does. I just written down a crazy thing.
Go on, what did you write down?
Registered managers are like vacuum cleaners.
They hoover everything up. They do. They go around sucking everything.
No, don't chuck them away because the bag's full.
Yeah. Empty the bag.
Empty the bag.
And if they need new rollers, get new rollers.
There you go. Emotional intelligence plus technical. But what does society do with the broken Hoover?
Chuck it up the tip.
Yeah. And is that because society likes the shiny new Hoover or Dyson or G-Tech or Electrolux or Shark? Other vacuum cleaners are available.
I think, and this is a whole other subject, I think it's the component thing. The component in the cog in the wheel, the component that does the role that you need them to do is no longer effective. So instead of actually looking at the component and what we can do and support that component to do the role that they do, we just swap it out. And that is a lot to do with the way that the world is built. And I
just realized,
it will
you
change.
know what I've just realized?
What?
This has been a very long episode.
It has, but it always is with us. And you know, we always aimed for 20 minutes and it's never going to happen, Tim.
We've managed for 46 minutes.
We have, yeah. But I don't think it's actually 46 minutes because I kind of spoke to you for at least 30 seconds first. I mean, that's as much as we do this week. And
but I think it's been incredibly valuable, and I hope that somebody did stick with it to the end.
Yeah.
Because I think we've actually beaten around the bush a little bit, but I think we've actually dissected the subject and come up with a workable solution.
Completely.
So if you are an employer of managers, or if you are a manager, remember, you are not a disposable commodity. You are valuable, and we want to support you. And I don't just mean Lucy and myself, I mean the social care sector wants to support you. But you've got to want to be supported.
Yeah. And
Lucy,
sometimes
go on, she's off again.
One really brave step, which is saying, I need help.
Would you like to wrap us up? Wrap it.
Well, another
Beg for clicks
episode.
and likes.
Tim says I need to beg for likes and subscribers. Do you know what? I'm really not that bothered.
I'm not that bothered either.
Yeah, I think we've just decided we're just not that bothered. As long as you have got something out of this, that's all that matters. If it's made you think differently, if it's helped you see something from a different perspective, fundamentally, if we impact one person, then we're both happy, because that's a win.
It is indeed.
Until next time.
Good night for me.
And it's good night from me.
But you always get that wrong now.
I know. Good night from him. Was it good night
Every
from
time.
her? I don't know.
So by episode 336, you'll finally get that right.
I'm off to watch some Morecambe and Wise.
Yeah. Stop the recording.
I'm stopping it.